Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Gamehouse's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I am Robert Haynes, and I am your big idiot who, well, I, I did this whole show actually not too long ago, about a little bit ago, and I didn't hit record. First time in my career I've done that. I hit start streaming instead of recording. Unfortunately, I wasn't streaming to anything, so there's no VOD either. So I'm still your host and your guide into the world of TSM, but I'm also a big idiot. So you guys get this on try number 2. I'm going to come better prepared this time, even though I was pretty prepared the last time. Anyways, yeah. Let's get into it. What I decided this time was that I was going to do a look at TL's games against TSM and C9 in terms of their series. I want to kind of get a look at, what they did well and poorly, and what we can maybe learn from it going into this coming up series. So looking at the TL-TSM series, obviously the first game was a throw. We technically got us skilled thanks to the Jhin and the Orianna, with the Azir on TSM being really the only scaling option. But if TSM don't snowball a terrible Baron into a terrible Drake call, into multiple deaths, they don't probably lose that game. Even if they just lose the Baron and they back off, which is something that we had talked about before, they probably have a chance to still win that series. And so, or at least win that game, I should say. And so, there's not much you can learn from that other than just don't snowball your mistakes. Don't really, TL didn't really play anything great. Tactical wasn't great that series. Nobody on TL really played well. In terms of what TSM should have done differently, it's that. What they did, that is in don't throw and snowball your throw. What TSM did well was they focused Alfari early, and this is going to be key to beating Team Liquid. They didn't let him get comfortable. They didn't let him get ahead. They got an early kill on him. They were able to take him out of the game early, at least, and that's important. They also had early Drake control, which they can't allow TL to snowball the Drakes either. Keeping that from happening, I think, is going to be really important in this series. And they just out-macroed them and outplayed them. Seriously, that game 1 was like, man, that's everything that we could ever hope for outside of the last 3 minutes. I mean, that's textbook great game and then lose. That is textbook, if you've ever seen the show Soul Eater, where the entire show is freaking awesome and then the ending is Garbo. Just the truth. We move on. TSM during the series, one of the big things they learned is that the Udyr was too predictable first pick. I don't dislike it. It's more of there's nothing that they can learn from doing it. TL were clearly allowing it to happen. TSM, when they lose game 2, they should have made some adjustments. And sure, the Udyr wasn't the main reason that they were losing or anything, but it just felt like TL, they just got a read on TSM. And taking the first pick Udyr when there were other things, like the Rel or just some other specific picks that they could have picked, especially in the EG series, would have been great. And TSM do this with the Nidalee too. And it drives me absolutely nuts. There's nothing wrong with picking a jungle pick consistently, but switching it up is going to be important. So I'll dive into that a little bit later. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I did this already, so I'm thinking about things way ahead of time because they were the more recent things that I talked about. All right, continuing on. Communication was just off. I mean, you could tell. It was like they were playing, back when they were having their issues in the lock-in. Truthfully. They weren't as bad, obviously, as that, but there were definitely some times where communication broke down, And TL just played some of these team fights and individual matchups really, really well, and that's what they do. Their team fighting hasn't been as great as you would normally expect from this team, but at least in their individual matchups, they're gonna come at you, right? I mean, whether it's TL or whether it's Tactical and Core JJ in the bot lane, Jensen, Alfari very specifically, they will absolutely punish and make you uncomfortable. And TSM have to have better communication in terms of where their lane opponents are, what's going on in the game, and really be able to adapt better. In Game 2 specifically, they just let Alfari take over. And this is key because this happens in the TSM series and the C9 series. When Alfari is able to take over a game or is not punished early on in the game, right? He is just allowed to farm, be comfortable, maybe get a solo kill, kind of just do his thing. He can take over the entire game. He will snowball his lead in the top lane throughout the rest of the map. And that's why TSM got beat so badly in Game 2. I fully believe that. I think that there were a lot of other things, obviously, but I think that Alfari's ability on Gangplank was just too strong for TSM. Another thing I learned during this series was that TSM just played too many new things. We hadn't seen a lot of this during the season, and there's something to be said about it because they did learn some things like PoE can pull out the Seraphine and it be very successful, which I personally enjoyed because I like him on that champion. I think that can be a very good champion for him moving forward. And we've already seen it, so hopefully we will continue to see it. But it felt like, they bring out the Rumble for the first time. They're bringing out the Seraphine for the first time. They're picking Udyr after not picking Udyr pretty much all split the entire time, which, these things sort of worked out. But, even the Aphelios pick, there was a lot of new strategies and new things that they were trying to do, and that's fine when it's the first series and it's the first 2 games specifically. No, because they do it again in Game 3, which works for them. But even if you're looking at the EG series and stuff, they're bringing out a lot of things that are spreading out how non-diverse they were in their picks for a little while there. And people were able to hone in on them, and they had to make those changes. I just wish they would have done them sooner. I wish they wouldn't have allowed themselves to get to a point where they're trying and they're bringing out so many new things in these series. There are times when you need to do that, when you need to have those kind of wink wink pocket picks, right? That you've been hey, I've been sitting on this all season, or I've been sitting on this for the last 3 weeks, man. It's been doing really well for me. No, I want them to not try to do that in this series. Maybe have one pocket pick, one thing that you haven't shown yet, and bring that out. Otherwise, forget it. Play what you know. And I think that if they do that a little bit more in this series, things might have been a little different. They won Game 3 by focusing Alfari again, not letting him get ahead. I think that was a major part of it. And then in Game 4, they weren't able to stop the split push, which, again, held Alfari and Jensen too. But, the Huni AP Gragas pick really hurt that team. They needed another frontliner. They didn't have it. They just didn't have it. It was tough. It's tough to win that game when Alfari is behind, or when Huni's behind, and he can't match Alfari or Jensen. Because you have a mid lane Seraphine, so who else is going to go out and meet them, right? You can't let the Olaf go out there. And Lost was not in a position to be able to do it either. So it was really incumbent on if Huni had not gone AP. He just went overly aggressive, and I'm okay with it occasionally, but I really want to see Huni just not I don't want to see the Camille with Ignite and TP. I don't want to see it. Unless if Alfari pulls out the Aatrox. That is probably that, or just some really super healy champion. I don't know, maybe Mundo, if he was randomly going to pull out a Mundo or something. That's when I'd be like, okay, you can pull out the Ignite because that's going to be very, very useful for you. Outside of that, I don't want to see it. No thanks. No, thank you. Take Flash. Play smart. His Camille can be very effective into the late game, but not when he's down 3 kills or 3 deaths. Just not going to happen. All right, we look at the C9 series, and this one you can start to see some of the patterns as to what makes teams successful against TL. Because I'm sure C9 watched the TSM series and they thought, some of these things that TSM are doing work. Because like in all reality, TSM should have won game 1. Yeah, they lose game 2. We don't know if it would have been affected by game 1. I'm taking these in like individual context. Game 1 TSM, if they win that, they're up 1-0. They probably should have won it up 1-0, right? They lose game 2, whatever. They win game 3, they're up 2-1. In game 4, they were up early too, and they kind of just muffed it up. There's a chance that TSM could have 3-1 that series. Very, very much a chance. I would say a better than 60% chance that they do. They just didn't play it well and made too many mistakes. Can't win games if you make that many mistakes. Against C9, Alfari was getting ganked constantly, and they picked themselves into a really bad matchup, especially in game 1 with Core JJ on the Seraphine. Shout out to Thomas Baker. He will be having the Liquid Lowdown coming down today. You should give that a listen too if you're listening to this podcast. If you like LCS content, the man is quite smart. I would give it a listen. But Core JJ on Seraphine, he was the one. He was like, hey, like, Seraphine is going to be really, bad for Core JJ, and so because of that, he was right. Like caster supports for him are not great, and so this was something that C9 took advantage of, in all honesty. So because of that, I would expect TSM to kind of be looking at that going forward, and they showed too that if you gank Alfari, you are going to find success because he can't get ahead. Against C9 as well, they gave up dragon control due to weaker bottom lanes. Santorin was behind on ganking. He was given the Hecarim and just did not do much on it. And one of the things that was also seen was that TL tries a lot of comps with not enough frontline. And I'm sorry, but Gnar is not a frontline all the time. I think Doublelift said this on his stream. He's like, dude, like Gnar's an 80 carry, like 70% of the game or 80% of the game. Right? And when he's Mega Gnar, sure, he's tanky. He's actually able to do what people are expecting him to do. But until then, he's kind of like an 80 carry. He's got a kite. He's got to throw his boomerangs. He's attacking from range. He really can't jump into fights or anything until until TSM, or excuse me, until he against any team until he is. Excuse me, sorry, dogs barking. But until he is able to transform, essentially, and that's going to be crucial when looking at these TL comps, because they will consistently play Gnar and something like Nautilus or just a Thresh, and think that that's enough frontline. And if you play around the Mega Gnar, then especially the Alfari Mega Gnar, that I mean, seriously, it makes their comps very vulnerable. TL are also picking too many bad lanes during this series for their bot lane and their mid lane. They're constantly behind, and I think that this is kind of what TL did against TSM earlier in the season, where they just like for some reason picked these really weird lanes, or had these really just weird picks overall, and TSM won the draft consistently. They didn't do this during their last series against them, but C9, they made TL make some mistakes in the draft, and it was pretty apparent. In game 2, the one that TL won, this series was kind of weirdly similar to TSM's series. They left Alfari alone, and guess what? He dominated game 2. Just took over the game. That's something that is a constant theme for TL wins. And it's not saying that he's going to die necessarily every time that you gank him in the top lane, but he is going to be vulnerable. And he's not going to be able to play as aggro or as aggressively in general as he would like to. Jensen can also play Seraphine. No surprises there. He played it really well, honestly, in this series. And he's done it a lot in a lot of series. I'm normally very critical of Jensen, but in the TSM series specifically and in a couple of these C9 games, he was extremely impactful and made a lot of really good plays. So, got to watch out for him right now. TL did not get enough of an advantage in Game 3, similar to how TSM didn't get enough of an advantage in Game 4, and C9 took him out. One of the things that I did notice that TSM didn't do as much, but C9 did, was they played around Jensen's aggression, which he's not known for being super aggressive or, somebody who's going to be able to be punished very often. But it seemed like in this series, and I went back and looked in a couple times in TSM series, where he's trying to position himself in an aggressive manner. And so I want TSM to notice that and try to punish him, because C9 do this a lot. He'll be, up in a bush, or he'll just be up in a team fight in general, and they will just jump onto him. They will try to knock him out early, or at least, knock him out at the fight, if not killing him, as quickly as they can. And there's no doubt in my mind that TSM can learn from this and watch, and even just guess sometimes, if they have like a Thresh or something, throw a hook in, because if Jensen might just be there waiting to pounce, especially if he's playing something like the Sylas or the Ahri, and you can catch him out. It is an exploitable but very subtle weakness that TL have, and C9 took advantage of it. Other things here, are TL going to draft for Core JJ earlier? He's getting so many bans against him in this series, and it put him behind in a couple things. When he had to play the Seraphine and even like some of his Thresh games and stuff. Like, while Thresh is very good for him, there are some champions that are just much better in the meta right now, and he just wasn't able to play them because TL or C9 would just ban them, and TL wouldn't pick for him early. And I know they like to give him counter pick, but at what point are you going to give one of your best players, possibly, the best support in the LCS, a chance to do more than just get a counter pick that sometimes is useful and sometimes isn't? The last thing is tacticals positioning, man. That boy, whether he's playing, a character that can jump in, or whether he's playing a character that's back, he is constantly in bad positions. And it's less exploitable when he's not playing something like the Tristana or, the Kaisa. But it is something that C9 watched for. And even when he was playing something, which most of the time in that series, if I remember correctly, he wasn't playing any, Kaisa or Tristana, he was still just in weird positions. He was in weird positions either to not do enough damage or to get caught out. And this is another very exploitable thing, and everybody knows this one, but I think they more think of it as him like inting, when he jumped in on the Tristana, and I think it was game 2 or 3. I think it was 3, against TSM. He's a great player, and he's going to be very good. He just gets, I think, a little ahead of himself still. And until he learns from that, team's got to be ready to take advantage of it. All right, moving forward here, matchup to watch, PoE and Jensen. Battle of truly second place. I think Perks has been proving so far that he's first. Either of these guys will have a chance to, try to prove to me that I am wrong, prove to everybody that we're wrong, and try to beat Perks on Sunday. But for right now, on Saturday, this is the matchup to watch. Can Power of Evil not let Jensen kind of take over some of these games, or at least just be a huge menace? Which during the TSM series, I would say Jensen was probably the player of the series for me. I think that Power of Evil actually played a really good series and hasn't done so, like, especially in the 100 Thieves series. He was really good in the EG series too, but 100 Thieves series he wasn't as great. I want to see him rebound and take on Jensen, like really take him on. Jensen's gonna pull out the Ari or pull out the Silas or pull out something that TSM really aren't expecting, which is rare for him. But he's kind of changed his style a little bit in that way, and TSM have to be ready to react to that, and Power of Evil is gonna be crucial in making sure that he can at least stay even, if not get ahead, and then use his team fight prowess, which is actually better than Jensen's. Jensen's better at skirmishing. I think Power of Evil is better at team fighting. And I don't know. It's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. All eyes should be on the mid lane because as these two players go, probably will the rest of the team. So yeah, I mean, it's a chance to prove who's the second best right now in the LCS. Is it going to be the combo of Bjerg and Power of Evil, right? The knowledge of Bjergsen combined with the knowledge and the skill of Power of Evil? Or is it going to be Jensen getting his revenge after all the times that Bjergsen would, beat him up? Maybe that's why I've never really thought he was like super good, is because I'd mostly watch him against TSM and I would be like, Bjergsen can handle Jensen pretty well. I do think that Jensen has clammed up during clutch opportunities. And I think the Power of Evil hasn't. I think he's come up clutch a lot of times. So, Jensen so far this playoff specifically has been playing really, really well. And mostly outside of last series. So is Power of Evil. So it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. This is definitely the one that I'm most excited to see, and I'm really hoping that Power of Evil proves a lot of us right with our trust in him. I think he will. We're going to go through these advantages and disadvantages a little more quickly than I did last time. I think that this is something that I can definitely speed up from the last time. So we're going to go through disadvantages really quickly. TL beat TSM last time. It's plain and simple. That is going to be on the mindsets of TSM, especially if they win game or lose game one. If TSM lose game one, then TL have got TSM right where they want them. I know that this team doesn't really give up. They fight to the end, and they're very good at doing so. But it's going to be important for them to not let the mindset of, oh no, here we go again, get into their head. Also, Alfari takes over games really quickly, man. He does. And if TSM aren't careful, like, that is a huge disadvantage because he's probably going to be MVP, I would have to guess. And yeah, he's a good player, man. The dude has come over to the LCS making a lot of money and is excited to not be on a bad team this year and has been able to dominate in the LCS. And that is a big disadvantage for TSM because that man, he's scary. He real scary. Core JJ also bested the Vision King in the last series, and he's been doing really well vision-wise. TSM haven't been as great vision-wise, and I still believe that vision is one of the biggest common denominators in successful teams. Those who can play around vision, not just have it, but play around it really well. We saw, Golden Guardians actually did a pretty good job with vision, but they just kind of, they still sucked. So, I think for TSM to win, they can't let Core JJ best them again in vision. I think that's a big disadvantage, which was not one during the season, but for some reason during playoffs, they've just not been the same team vision-wise. They have not been as confident in their vision. Overall, the last one is going to be Jensen's champion pool. The Silas and the Ari very specifically are a problem for TSM. Now, the last time they could just ban the Echo against, EG, the last time they had like such an interesting disadvantage. And they were, able to kind of just ban away Jizuke's champions, and it didn't matter. They can't do that against against Jensen, at least not right off the bat. If the Ari or the Silas becomes a problem, sure, then maybe you can ban them in the first or second round if you really need to. But they are pretty true counters to Power of Evil's playstyle, and I'm really hoping that TSM have been preparing for it with something other than like, I don't know, God forbid, some quirky or TF pick. Oof, please, none of that. Here are the TSM advantages. They're coming off a victory. TL aren't. Plain and simple, that is a mindset advantage, at least to start for TSM. Again, if they lose that first game, that's where their disadvantage comes in because of the TL victory against them in the last series. But TL are coming off a pretty devastating loss to C9, and TSM are coming off a not super convincing win against 100 Thieves, but I just don't feel like they were overly worried about it. We'll find out probably later today when TSM Legends comes out, but they're coming off a victory. They should be confident. They've won back-to-back series in 3-1 fashions, and I don't think that they've even really been playing their best. So I think their best series still was against TL, honestly. I think that's when they played their best League of Legends. Against EG and against 100 Thieves, they were pretty sloppy, but they won. So if they clean up some mistakes, then they should feel a lot better. I believe that they also started prepping for 100 Thieves /C9 before the C9/TL before the 100 Thieves series. It's a super controversial opinion, but they didn't show anything really during the 100 Thieves series. They didn't really bring anything out until game 4. They played pretty standard comps. They played pretty standardly overall, and they won those first 2 games. I don't know. I was like I said last podcast on Monday. Like, I really wasn't that nervous about that series overall. Yeah, I got a little nervous in game 4 because they were kind of throwing a little bit there. But like, even after game 3, I really was just like, TSM are just a better team. They should just straight up win this series. So we'll have to see. But I guess that's how it always is. You'll have to see. But I think that they were preparing for this. So I think they're going to be more ready for Team Liquid than they were against EG or 100 Thieves. Because I think everything's been leading up to this. And this weekend, TSM have, I think, expected to be top 3. So they've been prepping like they are a top 3 team, and then they were going to, if they needed to pull out some stuff against EG or 100 Thieves, they probably would have, but didn't really seem like they needed to. TSM have also played 12 games to TL's 8, and while that may not seem like a lot, 4 games in a meta is really important. And they currently have a winning record, which doesn't really matter too much, but hey, being 7-5 is great. But I think that I think that they're gonna have a better read on the meta. I think they're more confident in their picks, and they're gonna be a little bit of a different team than what TL saw in the first series. And I think it's gonna be because of the last 8 games that they have played in these series. If they've been quick 3-0s, I don't think TSM would have learned as much. So this will be an advantage for them. Statistics-wise, I haven't used that as much this time. I promise I looked at them, but there just wasn't as much interesting things to go around about this time. But Baron control was one that I thought was interesting. TSM have 83% first Baron, 78% Baron control overall, compared to TL's 25% first Baron and 40% Baron control overall. That's a big advantage. Whether it's Spica stealing Barons or just TSM, getting the Baron early like they did in, I think, every single game against 100 Thieves and most of them against EG too. That's where they're going to need to have their advantages. Baron is still the most impactful objective in most games. We don't get to Elder Drake most of the time, and we don't always get to Soul Drake, but you always get to Baron. You always do. And I think that's where TSM need to really focus their attention and try to win their games there. They can't throw at Baron. They cannot do that again. If they win at Baron, whether they sneak it away, whether they smite it away, whether they just get a clean Baron, they're going to win this series, I think, if they can get first Barons pretty regularly. And then being on stage is going to help too. I think that is a huge advantage for TSM. They just feed off of emotion. And sure, there's not going to be fans there, but just the excitement. Sure, maybe it might lead to a little bit of nervousness in game 1. Hopefully they don't lose it and then get into that, uh-oh area where we were talking about with TL beating them last time. But, I think TL are a team that are pretty even keeled. They're pretty level headed. They don't really they feed off emotion, but not as much as I think TSM. And being on stage for the first time in a really long time for TSM is going to be a little nerve wracking, but also I think really exciting for them. And if TSM get a couple kills early or start playing really well early on, make some good plays, I think the energy from Huni and Spica specifically are going to just flow into the rest of the team. And momentum is a very powerful thing, my friends. And having the stage to help that is going to be important. All right. We're into the champions to watch. 4. Renekton, don't think we see it again. It's just too strong, and Huni and Alphari can play it really well. I think it will continue to get banned. Nocturne is obviously a pick now. It's becoming like almost like a Rumble or a GP type pick for Huni, at least in this playoffs. It's like a go-to comfort pick for him now, and it's still a very strong pick. I would expect TSM to bring this one out pretty early on if it doesn't get banned, especially if Alphari plays some sort of tank. That seems to be what they like to play it into most, and I don't know its interaction with Twisted Fate, but I was thinking about it and I was like, well, if he uses his Nightmare ability before the Twisted Fate ult, I believe that it keeps him blind. I think that if he uses it after, then maybe not so much, but the point is I think it can be a really nice counter for TF should TL want to bring that out, or just a good counter in general. The TSM have played around it really well. It's been kind of like a secretly really good pick for them. It's not as much a secret anymore, but I think Huni likes to play it, and I would be fine with them bringing it out. Rel's also going to be another pick that's really strong. Both players like to play it. I would ban it through most of these if I was either of these teams, but she just doesn't seem to get the ban hammer as fast. TSM did ban it against TL in their previous series. If she has the opportunity there for TSM to take her, they need to take her. Sword Art has been so good on her, and I know that she's kind of OP, but at the same time, the pilot has to be pretty good on her as well, in controlling her, and we know Sword Art is. So I would love to see him on that pick. If it's available, I wouldn't even mind it being a first pick because I don't care about Alistar or Gragas or whatever into a counter of her. Don't really care. It's all about the team fight with her. Thresh is a good pick. We've seen it on Core JJ more than once. He has been able to pull it out and has found a lot of success on it. It's one of his all-time best champions as well. And, if TSM have been doing their homework, I would ban it during the second round of bans because it doesn't seem like they want to let Core JJ do counter pick. So be it. Take away the Thresh, take away the Rel if TSM aren't going to pick it. Take away the Nautilus maybe even. Don't let him be able to make impactful plays. Take away those types of champions, and I think TSM are going to like the way that their drafts go. Ari, we've already talked about it a little bit. She was a really big pain in TSM's side. She is a strong pick right now, and it is very obvious that Jensen is totally fine playing her into anything that TSM pull out. We'll need to watch for that. It might be a ban-worthy pick at some point, depending on when they're picking her and how well she does against them. And we'll see if TL even decide to play her. They don't have to, but again, she found so much success. I don't know why they wouldn't against TSM. Seraphine, don't need to talk about this one that much. She's either going to be pick or ban, I think, in almost every game this series. Straight up. Both mid laners can play her successfully. She's a super strong. She's probably still an S tier pick. Wouldn't surprise me to see her pick or banned every single time. That leads me into the Ori Syndra picks, though, for Power of Evil. I don't want him to go in this entire series without playing either or both of them at least once. There's best champions. TSM have to prioritize getting him on those picks. They just play better. I know Azir's been good too. I'm fine with that, but his Orianna is legendary. It is one of the best in the LCS and possibly one of the best in the world. probably one of the best in the world. Let him play it. Let him have the opportunity to play the champion that wins him games. Gnar is also going to be a really important pick here. I don't think that's as big of a surprise. You can't let him frontline, like I said, but or be the only frontline. But he is a good pick now. It took the LCS a while to figure it out, but he's strong. Both of them can play it. I expect him to also be pick or ban throughout most of this series. The last two are the Gangplank and the Nidalee. The Gangplank specifically is an Alfari pick that can be very strong. I know Huni's played it in the past. He's not played it well this year. I don't expect him to bring it out. I kind of hope he doesn't. But if Alfari gets it, they need to have a counter. They need to know that they need to be up there ganking constantly. Get Speak up there. Get Power of Evil up there. Make it happen. Nidalee pick here. I just don't want to see TSM pick it, honestly. I don't think it's going to work for them. It wasn't great in the last series, even though they picked it, I think, almost every single time. Let's be done with that one, okay? It's not Spica's 2020 Nidalee. It's Spica's 2021 Nidalee, which has just not been nearly as successful in this meta and just with this team in particular. I know he loves the champion, and I know he's pretty comfortable on her, but she just ain't doing it for me, and she really didn't do it for him or the team either. All right, we're moving right along here, fam. So we're going to head into the keys to victory. The first one here is just get Sword Art on something he can engage and make plays with, and something he can preferably leave the lanes as. I don't really like him on the Seraphine. I'm okay with him playing something like the Bard. I know Rakan's better with, with Lost, especially if he plays the Xayah. But I want to see him out there making plays, having the ability to get picks, and getting vision. Plain and simple. They've gotten a little bit away from that style lately, and I don't really know why. Just bring it back and let him roam around the jungle. Lost will be fine on his own, especially if he's playing something like the Xayah or the Tristana, where he has the ability to get out. And if he's warding correctly, or if the team's warding correctly and the team's communicating well, then Lost is not going to have to worry about anything. Second key here is let Power of Evil get counterpick if possible. I think that Jensen getting counterpick is going to be detrimental to this team. That's where he pulls out the Ahri. That's where he pulls out the Sylas. But if he has to first pick and Power of Evil can get last pick, that's where I think they're going to be in a better position. Biggest thing here is if they pull out the Seraphine, everybody is going to know that the Seraphine is going to Power of Evil. It's probably not going to Sword Art. Kind of the same thing with TL2. So TSM can take advantage of that. They need to get Power of Evil the counterpick. He is crucial to winning this series. And it is, in my opinion, that he needs to have counterpick as much as possible in this series for them to find success. Number 3, don't hone in on one pick for Spica if possible. Please, especially if you lose the first game. Don't or lose 2 games in a row. Like, just don't salty run back it. God, I could not stand it. I'm sitting here and I'm watching him. I'm like, stop picking the Udyr first pick. God. Yeah. No more. We're done with that. I don't want to see the Nidalee, in the first round either, especially when they're not going to pick it. I'm sure it's nice that Spica is willing to pick things, to blind pick things, and I don't mind that as much. But if it's the same freaking thing every time, they get better. They start to understand the matchup better. And the way that it's getting played throughout the series, unless if he is just absolutely dominating on one of these picks or playing it really, really, really well, I just don't want to see him hone on. Switch it up a little bit. Change it up. Do everything you can to just keep things unpredictable as much as you can. Number 4, and possibly I think the most important one potentially, is focusing on Alfari. He's been the key. Both teams noticed it. Cloud9 noticed it. TSM noticed it. It's not that he's bad, because he's really good. You're not focusing him because he's bad. You're focusing him, even if you don't kill him, just to not allow him to get too far ahead. And Huni has been a much stronger and smarter laner this year than he was in the past. That said, Alfari is really freaking good. And Alfari will absolutely take over games if TSM do not punish him early. I can't see, Huni on the Camille again against Alfari. I just can't. No, thank you. I want to see him on things that will allow him to scale, that will allow this team to punish Alfari for being too far ahead. And that will, I think, help them win a lot of these series. They did it with Impact. They did it with Someday. Now they need to do it with Alfari. 5 is simple. Punish tactical. Doesn't matter how or where. Always be looking to punish him. He is a problem for TSM or for TL right now, and he is potentially a huge boon for TSM. Take advantage of it. Get Drake control. Don't let TL beat you because they're able to get the soul, in 4 Drakes. Even just grabbing one of the first 2 for TSM should be a huge priority. Because when they do, they win. They just win more games. They don't have to pick fights, and if they do want to, then they can get the Drakes early enough to where TL have to come into them instead. There's just a lot of benefits for them to do it, because they can go take towers, they can go take Rift Herald, they can go do whatever the heck they want to. They can get CS advantages, but they got to make sure they get one of those first 2 Drakes. The last one, technically, there was a bonus one, but the last one is play your style of draft, meaning TSM, play what you are comfortable with. Play what you know how to play. Don't pull out a bunch of random new picks again. You don't need any of that, janky stuff, like, some surprise, like, haha, like, we're going to try to, surprise you because we don't think we're better than you. Like, no, we don't need that. We're good enough. We can play them straight up in our style of play and take them on. I don't want to see, some random Annie pick or something, because I think Annie's potentially pickable now. Like, I don't want to see that stuff. None of that. No, thank you. Play what you know how to play best. If they beat you, they beat you. Whatever. But you don't need any gimmicky BS. The last one is just don't throw at Rift or Baron. Please, God, don't do it, especially at Rift. The best teams in the world are able to either make sure that they can get either of those cleanly, or they are able to allow the other team to play into their hands at them. And they don't need to also treat Rift like it's a dragon. We've talked about this before, but please, guys, it's not as important as a Drake. Sure, it's a strong objective, but it's only strong, in its second part, not as much in its first. So if teams can't really take advantage of the second part, then it doesn't really matter. So please, no throws. With that, here comes my prediction. I am predicting a 3-2, so very close, good series. And I'm actually going to pick TL. As you guys can see, between a lot of the things I've talked about, TSM just have a lot of things they need to clean up and a lot of uncertainties. And I think this one's a coin flip, but unfortunately I think that coin flips against TSM. I don't really know why. It's just what my brain is telling me. I've looked at this over. I've done this. I even almost changed this when I was redoing this part, because I think it is going to be that close of a series. But there's just something there where I just think that TSM, I think they lose one of these games in another throw. But I think they're able to rebound a little bit more. And I think it's going to be a back and forth series. But I'm just not as confident that they showed me in the 100 Thieves and the EG series what I needed to know and see to feel confident that when they go up against TL again, that they're going to be able to beat them. I think it's going to be closer. I think it's going to be a really good series. But I think ultimately they end up at the end. They end up losing. I'm going to say this because I don't want to end it on that. My heart tells me that they're going to win Saturday and Sunday. But the brain, it's not aligning with the heart this time. And you guys know, like, I will pick TSM. I'm not, like, trying to go against them or whatever. Like, I think 3-2 is the optimal pick here, and I think that it's going to be really freaking close, but I think the TSM are just going to lose it somewhere along the way. Which breaks my heart because I really want to see them go to Iceland. I really want to keep doing the show, like I have been doing it throughout May, but I just don't see it happening, guys. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. I can see it happening. I don't think it will. That's not to say that I think that they're a better team overall. I just think that TSM still have a lot that they need to work on. And I think that they have a higher ceiling right now than TL. But I think that TL's floor is still higher and TSM's floor is really low at times. I think ultimately, if I have to, give a prediction, I think 3-2 TL. But my heart's telling me differently. My heart's telling me that they're going to pull this out somehow and that we're going to be sitting here. And you guys will be making fun of me and giving me crap, and I will be fine with that. I will be happy to do that. All right, to end on a better-ish note as well, TSM Academy were able to beat Dignitas Mirage 2-0. Cody Sun looked good. The team looked better. They looked more poised. Yeah, I know it's against a team that they should beat, but hey, that's the whole point of this thing. It's the whole point of Proving Grounds. It is to be different in terms of, finding talent. It's a new way to really bring out who's the best, right? And so far, like, we have seen, Academy teams are not necessarily winning every single time. I mean, EG Prodigies beat IMT Academy and Dignitas Academy. That's freaking awesome. No Org beat Golden Guardians Academy. Not super surprising, but they did. TL Academy, which was one of the better ones, lost to Barrage. Sure, some of these teams are filled with old pros. I don't care. We just need to see who's the best talent right now and, who can show things. So, like I said, TSM, they knocked out Dignitas Mirage, full of young players who, I think hopefully got a lot of good experience. Yeah, losing to C9 Academy and TSM Academy, in 4 games was probably not what they were anticipating, but hey, experience is experience, right? That's what we need. That's what we need to see. And again, TL Academy were like one of the best coming into this, and they lost to Barrage and Golden Guardians. And Golden Guardians Academy, by the way, is filled with young talent. Chime, Prismal, Yunbi, Rosethorn, and Tally. Those are all young players, most of whom haven't been in the scene yet until this split. So it's great to see teams like that pulling it off. Love it. And EG Prodigies, too. Tomio, Aspect, Shiro, Mist, Surdy. Shiro and Tomio specifically, I think, are very promising young players. It's going to be pretty cool to keep watching these. By the way, EG's Academy teams are like really good, it looks like. Contracts has been popping. Big time. Either way, TSM, trying to make a losers bracket run similar to their main team. They beat, like I said, Dignitas Mirage 2-0. They will be playing either No Org or Barrage, the winner of that series. And here are the players on those teams. For No Org, it is names that you mostly know: Viper, Onda, Five Fire, Value, and Big. All players who have been around for a bit. Specifically Big, Onda, and Viper. Five Fire and Value you may not know as much. Values from what's her name's Maryville. He's been around in the amateur scene for a pretty long time, so this is pretty cool to see him playing as well as he is. And then Five Fire has been in the amateur/collegiate scene for a bit. He also was on EG Academy at one point, and even was drafted by CLG. Didn't really get to stay with the team, but he's somebody who's pretty active on Twitter and a pretty interesting follow when it comes to the amateur scene. He's still young. I mean, he's still like the same age as Lost, so he's somebody who could definitely see his chance in the mid lane. And then they're taking on Barrage. Definitely players you've heard of. Winter, Gorica, both Academy players. Fnatic, an old TSM Academy player. Piecake Lord, who even, I don't know if I talked about this, but TGH used to have an amateur team that we were pretty good, honestly. We almost made it into LCS Academy. With our team, we were at least in the tournament and qualified to be able to be in it. So that was pretty cool. We were on a 2-month winning streak too, and sadly lost to Demonte. And I think it was the second round of playoffs. So not great. But yeah, and then they've got a really nice young player named Appa or APA. He's solid. I've been a big fan of his since Scouting Grounds. I think he could be a really nice pickup for somebody in North America. I would expect that if Barrage can make a run of some sort during these playoffs, that he could be a very successful player. Very, very successful player, and somebody who an academy team might want to pick up. For TSM Academy to win it all, they have to win 5 more best of or 2 more best of 3s, 3 best of 5s, and then another best of 5 in the finals. So they've got a long way to go. This thing's going to be a bit. So hopefully they can beat whoever they play in No Org or Barrage and keep on moving forward. If not, I would still encourage you all to look at and watch Proving Grounds. It's a really good opportunity to see some of the new young talent that could be coming up to the LCS next. All right. Schedule announcements. Really quickly here. Should TSM win on Saturday, there will be a podcast out on Sunday talking about, all of it. I'm going to try to get it all in about an hour, to review a little bit, but mostly preview the Cloud9 series. Again, should they win, which we all hope that they do. If they beat Cloud9, initially I was like, well, maybe I'll just do a Monday, one to celebrate the grand finals. I just don't know that I will be able to do 3 podcasts in 4 days. It's a lot of prep work. And just a lot of time out of my day. I love doing it, but 3 and 4 days it's tough. I'll be honest with you. It would be more like, like in 1 week, what it'd be 4 or 5 in like a 1 week span. So that's a little tough on me. We will see. I will make that announcement on Sunday. If I'm really feeling it, then I'll just go follow me on Twitter, and you'll see. I will make the announcements there as to how that goes. Should they lose on Saturday or Sunday, I will likely do just a Thursday show next week. Okay. Otherwise, I'm probably going to do just one show next week either way. It's either going to be Monday or Thursday. Again, just follow me on Twitter. I'll let you guys know. My plan during the during MSI and during just during the break too is to only do one show. I love doing 2 shows, but I just don't think there's enough for me to do 2 on. I just might make it a little bit of a longer one episode, but overall, I'm looking at 1 episode a week during the break. All right, with that, if you like the show, please take a second to like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching our YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss another episode. Also, I want to make this the #1 TSM podcast. I think it already is, but hey, let's move our way up even more. On all podcasting platforms, please leave a review, especially if you're listening on Apple. Share this with your friends. You can find me on Twitter at TGHRobertHaynes, or you can find the Gamehouse on Twitter at TGH Esports. Lastly, head to thegamehouse.com and head to our TSM page or just our esports and League of Legends in general. We really appreciate the support. Thanks for tuning in, guys. The show comes out normally every Monday and every Thursday. This is a Friday edition, though. Just sorry about that, by the way. I didn't say that at the beginning. Just things got a little hectic, got a little busy over the last couple of days. But it's out today, so it's still before the game, which is great. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. It is still exclusively for your TSM ear holes, by the way, no matter what day it comes out on. I'm Robert Haynes. This has been Talking TSM. Hopefully, I get to see you guys on Sunday. Have a good day, and go TSM.